Matt Painter says he's concerned about Purdue's rebounding, and as of right now, he absolutely should be.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network where it's your team every day. As always, I'm your host. I am Nick Arvin. I'm talking Boilermakers every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the only daily Purdue show out there, and we have a fun episode headed your way today because yesterday Matt Painter went on the Jon Rothstein show and had a lot to say. Great watch. So once you get done with this episode, go check that out. Had a lot to say about Purdue and specifically the rebounding of this team, why there is some concern there for Matt Painter. So we'll get into that to start out today's show. We'll then get into Jack Benner, where he fits in to this whole conversation. How is he going to perform headed into 2026 and my expectations for the, redshirt sophomore at this point. We'll finish out today's episode switching gears over to Purdue football, ranking all the games 1 through 12 in terms of most winnable to least winnable for the Boilermakers in just a couple weeks. We're kicking off 2 weeks from today. I can't wait. But today we're talking basketball, and we're going to jump right into things today, talking about the lead out for today's show. And that's what Matt Painter had to say on the Jon Rothstein show. He was pretty confident in a lot of areas of this team, and rightfully so. I think that this backcourt is one of the most talented backcourts we're ever going to see at Purdue in terms of the depth that is there. There's not much drop-off, if at all, from the starters to the bench in that backcourt, which is absolutely something you love to see for this team. You got talent there. You've got some guys that are coming into new roles this year, going to be starters, ultra talented guys. He talked about Purdue's recruiting strategy and how much more talented the guys, not necessarily more talented, but how highly touted these guys coming in now are compared to 8 to 10 years ago, what Painter was bringing in. So there were a lot of positives, but the big thing that stuck out to Matt Painter and the big thing that has stuck out to me when you talk about the roster and how it's constructed as of right now is, quite frankly, there's just a lack of rebounding on this team right now as we stand. I'm going to pull up the rebounding numbers from the players that Matt Painter was able to retain going into this year. CJ Cox, 2.8 rebounds a game. 3.0 for Daniel Jacobsen, 1.1 for Ulmer Meyer, 1.6 for Jakari Harris, 2.6 for Jack Benner. So that's right around 10 rebounds a game for those guys. And I understand that those are mainly players that played the bench last year behind a very strong senior class. So there's not a ton of volume on the court for them to get rebounds. But still, you look at Daniel Jacobsen, a guy who last year played only 12.9 minutes a game, but as the center, I'm not necessarily impressed with 3 rebounds a game. And we know that's not Daniel Jacobsen's forte. It never really has been. But there's still reason to be concerned about the rebounding, especially when you look at that center position. You look at Daniel Jacobsen being that starting center in 2026, and you just say to yourself, am I really confident in Daniel Jacobsen? And I'm really confident that he's going to rebound the ball well enough for this team to pick up victories in 2026. As we sit right here, right now, I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards no, because I wasn't necessarily impressed with the way he ended up playing in Canada. That was concerning for me. The way on the defensive side of the ball, he was not at his best, and that's not against a great competition by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not very confident in Daniel Jacobsen and his ability to rebound the ball. Could Raleigh Burgess be better than expected? Could he be one that takes a jump into this year coming off the injury? Absolutely. I think so. But does Raleigh Burgess give you enough on the boards to be able to compete against the Illinois, to be able to compete against the Michigan States, to be able to compete against the Tennessee, the Iowa State? I don't think so. To be honest, as we sit right now, I don't think there's enough rebounding in that front court. And that's primarily what Matt Painter had to say. You move over to the power forward position. You got Caden Pierce. You have Jack Benner. That's all fine and dandy. But Caden Pierce sits right around 6'6" last year. Yes, it was just 14 minutes, but Jack Benner sub 3 rebounds a game. That doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence. And apparently it doesn't leave Matt Painter with a lot of confidence either. But that's why Matt Painter is trying desperately to bring in a solution. And this is the biggest piece of the puzzle. It's not just the roster that's constructed right now. It's not just the guys that we saw in Canada. That shouldn't, or probably shouldn't, be the final product for this team. Enzo Shahrvin was intended to be brought in because Matt Painter understands that this is a hole in this team, that this will be an issue in this team if it stands as is. That's why Enzo Shahrvin was recruited to come over from France to come play at Purdue, even if for just 1 year, to be able to provide that little gap in rebounding that this team is missing this year. And I think it's absolutely necessary. I think that Enzo Shahrvin to this team is absolutely necessary in order to compete and in order to just be a competitive team within the Big Ten. I think that ESPN have Purdue's floor as a Sweet 16 team, or their ceiling as a Sweet 16 team, their floor as 7th in the Big Ten. And I mean, I see that as a possibility, but when you get to March, if you can't rebound the ball, I don't know if this is going to be a team that can make the Sweet 16 on just the guard play. I mean, it helps. It helps to have guards that can play. It helps to have guards that can make threes. It helps to have guards that can do a lot of things on the floor. But if you can't rebound the ball, teams are going to be able to beat you. And that's where we sit as of right now. And that's why Matt Painter said that Enzo Shahrvin is so important to this team and why it's so important for Enzo Shahrvin to eventually end up getting cleared if this team wants to reach the ceiling, even in a year where I call this a building block year. This is not going to be a year where Purdue is contending for a national championship, but it's going to be a year where new guys go into bigger roles. It's going to be where Matt Painter finds out a lot about who are going to be the future key players for this team. I think Jack Benner is one of those guys, and we'll talk about that here in the second segment. I think it's going to be big for him as well to be able to rebound the ball because he is one of those younger guys. He is going to be a player that is on future teams for Purdue. Daniel Jacobsen has to take that jump into 2026. I can't say that enough. I did a full episode on Daniel Jacobsen the other day, so make sure you go check that out. Daniel Jacobsen might be the most pivotal player to Purdue in 2026 because he can determine a lot of Purdue's success. Being that starting center for this team, being 7'4", he has the size, he has the potential. He was on NBA mock drafts for a reason. That wasn't just putting a guy up there. He was there for a reason. But he has the size. He has the ability to rim protect. He has the ability to score inside the post, but then the footwork is lacking. The physicality is lacking. Sometimes there's an IQ lacking. If Daniel Jacobsen is capable of putting all of those things together, I think this is a non-issue because he'll have it covered. I don't care if it's Caden Pierce. I don't care if it's Enzo Shahrvin. I don't care if it's Jack Benner next to him. Daniel Jacobsen is the piece of the puzzle that needs to be solved. And when you talk about rebounding, and you talk about rebounding being an issue for this team headed into next year, a lot of that conversation revolves around Daniel Jacobsen and not quite being able to put those pieces together. So I understand where Matt Painter's coming from. I applaud him from the fact that he believes Enzo Shahrvin, and rightfully so, that Enzo Shahrvin will be the guy if he is able to get cleared by the NCAA that helps this team as the missing piece, exactly what this team needs as kind of that junkyard dog. But honestly, Enzo Shahrvin or not, if Daniel Jacobsen doesn't get it together in 2026, if he isn't capable of rebounding up against some of the great centers in the Big Ten, this team's going to be in trouble. Simple as that. Enzo Shahrvin or not, Daniel Jacobsen has to produce if he's going to be the starting center of Purdue in 2026. There's a lot to be confident about in this team, and I don't want this segment to come off like I'm saying this team's going to be bad because they're not going to be bad. They're not going to be bad. They're going to win some games. I think there will be a little bit of a learning curve early in the season, but all that I'm saying is that if this team is going to want to compete, especially with the youth on the court, some of these guys don't have March Madness experience or have very very limited March Madness experience at that. So the way to overcome them is rebounding. If you can't rebound, you're not going to win in March. Simple as that. That's what Matt Painter had to say to John Rothstein, and I completely agree. And coming up here next, I'm going to talk to you guys about a piece of the puzzle in terms of rebounding, a piece of the puzzle that Matt Painter loves, a piece of the puzzle that I love. It's Jack Benner. Coming up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends from The Game. Since 1986, The Game has been creating classic college hats that fans are proud to wear. Whether you're an alumnus, current student, season ticket holder, or simply someone who never misses a game, a great college hat is more than just apparel. It's a way to represent your school wherever you go. And this year, The Game is celebrating its 40th anniversary by giving fans a chance to save on some of their most iconic college hats. If you've been thinking about replacing an old favorite or adding a new one to your collection, now is the perfect time. I love using The Game because they have so many different options, especially for Purdue. I have that white hat is always in the rotation if you're a longtime watcher here on the show. And I'm excited to get another one this year with The Game because with hundreds of officially licensed college hats to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit for game day and every day. Don't miss this chance to celebrate 40 years of The Game with 40% off your entire order. Visit thegamecaps.com and use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's thegamecaps.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Celebrate 40 years of The Game with 40% off, but don't wait. This anniversary offer won't last forever. In the previous segment, we talked about Jack Benner, who Jack Benner is, his kind of factoring into the rebounding, but I want to get more into Benter here in this segment. I want to do it the Benter segment. How about Benter? Because in my opinion, Jack Benner is bound for a big year as well. I will tell you the reasons why, but I want to start out with this. Last year, to start out the season, Trey Coffin-Wren is out. He's out those first couple of games. Who steps up in his role? Jack Benner. Last year, people said that Jack Benner wasn't going to play meaningful minutes when it came to the Big Ten, when it came to conference games, after he made some big shots in non-conference. What happened with Jack Benner? He averaged right around the same as Omer Meyer, Jakari Harris, Daniel Jacobsen. He was a key part of the rotation last year. People say that Jack Benner wasn't going to be a starter this year. That's still up in the air, but in Canada, he started a couple of those games. So Jack Benner is used to proving people wrong. Jack Benner is used to proving the national media wrong. Jack Benner is used to proving Purdue fans wrong. Jack Benner is used to proving Big Ten media, Big Ten fans wrong as well. Jack Benner proves people wrong. And the reason for that is because he's undeniable. He is the type of guy where if you tell him something, if you say, I'm going to put you in this box, you're not going to move from this box, he's going to be out of that box and he's going to have the box. Jack Benner is that type of guy. He's just undeniable. If you say he can't do something, he's going to do it. We saw that countless times last year, and Jack Benner proved that he is one of those guys that is a microwave scorer. He can make threes in a hurry on the defensive side of the ball. I thought that he got better as the season progressed over the course of the year. There were still times, I think back to that Michigan State game, I believe, where Jack Benner did things that it kind of showed that he's a redshirt freshman, right? He made some mistakes down the stretch of games where you just look at yourself and you're like, why shoot it there? Why make that decision? Those are things that get worked out with time. Those are things that get worked out as you grow. But I think the key part of all of this is that Jack Benner is someone that has Matt Painter's trust. Jack Benner is someone that has done things the right way at Purdue. And Jack Benner is someone that has performed even when people said he wouldn't do so. Those are the things that I want to see in a cornerstone guy. Those are the things I want to see in a guy that's going to play a few years at this university. And honestly, that's kind of where I see Jack Benner. But for this segment, I wanted to go into what would Benter's role be in 2026, because things get a little bit tricky for Jack Benner. Yes, I know I just mentioned it. That first game in Canada, the starting lineup, Omer Meyer, CJ Cox, Jakari Harris, Jack Benner, and Daniel Jacobsen. All of those bench pieces last year moving into the starting lineup, and that includes Jack Benner. Could that be the case for Benner in 2026? Could Jack Benner really be a guy that starts for Purdue this year? Honestly, I don't think so. However, that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen, because Caden Pierce was brought over for a reason. I got to say it. I know Matt Painter always says, well, our starting spots, they're earned, not given. And that might be the case, but you bring Caden Pierce for 1 year over for a reason. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think it's to come off the bench. Now, Caden Pierce, I've said it a few times, he is 6'6", and that's going to get thrown out a lot. But when you look at athleticism, when you look at some of the things that he does on the court, it doesn't look like he's 6'6". It looks like he's about 6'9", 6'10", with the way that he's able to operate on the inside, able to get up to the rim. He does some great things. So I'm not trying to talk about Jack Benner from a lens of Caden Pierce isn't good. Caden Pierce should not be starting over Jack Benner. I'm just here to tell you that Jack Benner has constantly proved people wrong. Jack Benner has constantly been a guy where people told him, you're going to sit in your role, and then he's overexceeded that role, those expectations, and he's done his own thing. So I'm saying this year, who's to say that Caden Pierce is going to be the starter just because he was a transfer brought over from Princeton? Yes, I think that is likely the scenario, but I also think it's a very good scenario, or I think it's very likely that this isn't going to be a season like last year, where Matt Painter sticks with his starters, where he sticks with Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, CJ Cox, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Oscar Clough every game of the season. I could see some guys getting rotated in and out over the course of the non-conference, heading into conference play, depending on what works the best. And honestly, I think that works really well with Jack Benner. You could see maybe Luke Ertl and Omer Meyer, those two guys, trade in and out of the starting lineup. Antoine West might be able to crack that line. Shakari Harris in and out. And then Caden Pierce, Jack Benner at the power forward position. We saw it. We saw that it worked in Canada. Yes, that wasn't the best lineup in the world, and I give a lot of that to Luke Ertl and just his ability to create plays. But we saw Jack Benner in the starting lineup, and we saw him play pretty good basketball, in my personal opinion. Last season, Benter averaged 4.4 points a game, 2.6 rebounds on 14 minutes, but shot at 47% from field goal range, right around 40% from three. Those are the numbers. Those are the splits you want to see. 47% from field goal range, 40% from three. At power forward, that is a guy that you trust to make those shots. And at power forward, that is a guy that shoots the ball a little bit better than Caden Pierce. 35% from the field, give or take, for Caden Pierce at Princeton. And yes, that is against Ivy League opponents. I'm just making the case for Jack Benner, and I'm not even trying to make the case. I want to be very, very clear when I say this. I am not advocating for Jack Benner to start over Caden Pierce. I'm just saying, from my perspective, from what I've seen, Jack Benner has consistently overexceeded those expectations. And going back to the previous segment, you talk about rebounding the ball. Jack Benner hasn't been great at rebounding the ball, just 2.6 rebounds a game for Benter. But with a higher volume, he could be the answer. I felt that he looked pretty good when he subbed in for Trey Kaufman-Wren, and that was a very raw version of Jack Benner. That was a Benner that hadn't played a whole lot of time. I pulled up the game logs to figure out which games those were. It was Evansville and Oakland to start out the season. Once again, it's Evansville and it's Oakland, but 11 points in both of those games, 7 rebounds and 6 rebounds in both of those games as a starter. Yes, it's Oakland. Yes, it's Evansville, but who has Caden Pierce played? Played at Ivy League opponents. Is that better than Missouri Valley Conference opponents in Evansville? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm just saying there is a case to be made for Jack Benner. I think his ability to shoot the three is going to be very important for this team, as a lot of these different guys. But I think if Jack Benner can rebound the ball and he can be a solid 3-and-D player, there's going to be a genuine case for him to be in the starting lineup this year. And it may not be this year. This may not be the year where Jack Benner takes that throne, but I'm telling you, sooner rather than later, he's right up there with CJ Cox, in my opinion, for the two guys that are going to be the future of Purdue. Jack Benner has 3 years. 3 years at Purdue. That's incredible. Imagine what he can do under Matt Painter in that time. Imagine what leaps Jack Benner can take in that time. The sky's the limit for Jack Benner. And he might not get that starting spot this year, but he might. He just might. He might prove that he is the better player on the floor And then the sky's the limit for Jack Benner. I can't express that enough. He is a future star for Purdue. I genuinely believe that. I think that he is the future at the power forward spot. We'll see what happens with Sinan Juan. Is he a power forward? Is he a center? I think Jack Benner is a guy going into the future. I'm excited to see Benter. I'm excited to see how that role plays out as we get into these exhibition games in just a couple months now. We're so close. Football starting up in 2 weeks, 2 months until basketball. It's the best time of the year. I can't wait. And Jack Benner's ready for it as well. But to end off today's episode of Locked On Boilermakers, we are going to switch gears to end out today's episode. Go into football. Go back to the schedule. I'm ranking every game. Number 1, number 12 in terms of winnability for Purdue. That's coming up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games. Whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league, every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. Jordan Walker has been my choice for Daily Dingers. He came up clutch yesterday against the Reds in a crazy Cardinals win. I keep on going with Jordan Walker. He keeps on giving me some good games out of him. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. To end off today's episode, I wanted to put a little bit of a twist into previewing Purdue's schedule, and I actually wanted to rank these games in terms of which game is the most likely for Purdue to win, which game is the least likely for Purdue to win. And we'll start right off with the game that's kicking off in 2 weeks from today. And I can't calculate the hours in my head. I wish I could, but 14 days from today, Indiana State. Undoubtedly the only FCS opponent, not even a very good Missouri Valley Conference school at football. That is one that Purdue should win 100 times out of 100. If Purdue at all loses that game, we are going to have a lot of conversations here on the show about the future of Purdue football, the future of this program. There's going to be a lot to talk about if for some reason Purdue loses to Indiana State in that one. Game number 2 I have is one that Purdue played very close last year. This game was on the road. There were some turnovers towards the end that really hurt Purdue. This was Minnesota versus Purdue. I think that this is the second most likely game for Purdue to win. Now, I know some people throw out Maryland out there. I know some people throw out week 2 against Wake Forest and say, hey, Minnesota, usually a pretty good team, which they are. But I think that Purdue has this team's number this year, especially at home in Ross-Ade, coming off 2 tough games in Notre Dame and Illinois. This is one I really do think Purdue is going to win. I expect this to be Purdue's first conference win in 2.5 years, something crazy like that. So Minnesota is probably the second most likely. Minnesota, they're going to want to run the ball a whole lot, which could be a weakness this year for Purdue. ESPN has Purdue actually favored to win that one, 52% to 48%. So that one's pretty much a pick 'em. But I do have the Boilermakers beating Minnesota. That is the second most likely win for me. Third most likely, in my opinion, is going to be that Maryland game that I brought up. That one is towards the end of the season. Mike Locksley kind of on the hot seat this year. They have a talented young quarterback, but if they don't have a head coach, who knows? I do think that Purdue is going to beat Maryland. I think that Maryland will be one of the teams on the basement of the Big Ten. And I know it's kind of crazy to say that from a Purdue lens when we have been the basement for the last few years, but I do think that Purdue ends up beating Maryland. ESPN has Purdue as a 51.3% favorite to win that one. So that game is probably the last one on this list where Purdue will be favored. They are favored to be Indiana State, Minnesota, and Maryland. I have it in that order in terms of easiest to hardest. The fourth easiest game, in my opinion, for Purdue is going to be that week 2, that pivotal matchup, ACC versus Big Ten, against Wake Forest. Now, Wake Forest, new quarterback Gio Lopez comes over from North Carolina. A lot of new pieces on that team, but they did win 9 games last year. So it's a talented team, but just lost a lot of pieces. They could contend for an ACC championship, or they could be a team towards the bottom of the ACC. One of the biggest question marks in the ACC is Wake Forest. ESPN has Purdue as a 43.3% chance to win that game, so a slight underdog in that one. I have Purdue winning that one. Maybe that's an optimist perspective, but at home at Ross-Ade, that's kind of a must-win, in my opinion, from Barry Odom to get the season started out right. I think Purdue goes into that one with that perspective and comes home with a dub, especially with a new quarterback over at Wake Forest. A lot of new pieces, could be a little bit of a learning curve there. Number 5 in terms of easiest, got Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is one that I did predict Purdue to win. All 4 of these games so far, I have Purdue winning. This is going to be the toughest win for Purdue, in my opinion. And this is the 5th win on the season. I have Purdue going 5-7. So the rest of these will be losses, in my opinion. Purdue hasn't beat Wisconsin since 2003. But also, this will be one of the worst Wisconsin teams, I think, in recent history. Maybe they're better than last year, but last year was pretty putrid from a Wisconsin point of view. Wisconsin's win total is 6.5 games this year. I think they'll go under that. Their offense won't be good again, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm too harsh on the Badgers, but that would be a huge win if Purdue could pull that off against one of the premier Big Ten schools. Usually just won't be that good right now under Luke Fickell. At 6, this is where the losses start. I've got on the road against UCLA. Wayne Knight comes over from JMU. Nico's still there. Explosive offense on the road in Pasadena, West Coast trip. For all those reasons, I do think it will be a loss for Purdue. I just don't think they'll be able to stop UCLA. Now, I know it's a new era of Bruins football, but if Purdue could pull that off, 3-0 start, incredible. That sets you up in a good position to maybe make a bowl game at 6-6. I just don't think that Purdue gets it done against UCLA, to be very honest with you. The 7th game I've got in terms of easiest, so 6th hardest now is Washington. And Washington is a team that is much better than Purdue. All the connections. Ryan Walters, I think Barry Odom's brother is over there. The only reason why I have this game at 7 is because it's a short week and Washington has to travel over to Ross-Ade from the West Coast. Those are 2 things that could potentially go in Purdue's favor when you talk about just the logistics of how that game is going to be played. That one will be on Fox. Purdue, less than a 30% chance to win that one, right around 29.5%. I think that Purdue might be able to stick in it, but I don't think that Purdue's going to win that one. Number 8, I got Illinois. Illinois is not going to be as good as they were last year. Luke Altmaier has gone. Their win total is 7.5. I still think that game is not one that Purdue is going to be capable of winning as of right now, so that is why they are at number 8. At number 9, 4th hardest game is going to be on the road against Iowa. Now, Iowa's a team that's tricky because they're much better than Purdue, but also they have that kind of they have that reputation of, if you just score once and keep it a close game, Iowa's not going to score a whole lot of points. If you make a play down the stretch of the game, the Hawkeyes are beatable. And while I think that's the case, I just think that Iowa is going to outmatch Purdue, especially on the road. That will be tough. Number 10, 3rd hardest game. And I don't think Penn State will be the Penn State of usual in the first year. Once again, it takes a long time. And I think UCLA will run into this a little bit as well. No matter how optimistic you are about your new head coach, it's very rare to have the success you did, or have the success that Indiana had, or that Kurt Cignetti had. And you can try to replicate that all you want, but there usually is that learning curve when you bring in a new head coach. I think Matt Campbell will run into that at Penn State. I think it could be a little bit tough to get all these guys together and have them just be the Penn State of old in year one. With that being said, you're still playing at Happy Valley. That is a tough play to play, especially if you're trying to win a game. I don't think Purdue beats Penn State. At 11, I have Notre Dame, and I think Notre Dame is probably my national championship favorite as of right now. I think they're an incredible team. CJ Carr just has all the swagger in the world. I think he's the best quarterback. Riley Leonard was pretty good, but I think he's one of the better quarterbacks they've had in terms of just retained guy. I think Notre Dame will be great this year. The only reason I have them at number 11 and not number 12 is because sometimes early season games don't play in their favor. Sometimes they lose those early season games against teams they don't really have any business losing to. At Ross-Ade, could that happen this year? Probably not. Probably not. But one can hope, one can dream. Notre Dame, a much better team. But who knows? They lost to NIU a couple of years back. Number 12, Indiana on the road in Bloomington. That is going to be a game Purdue doesn't win. As much as I hope, I've been to the last couple of those bucket games, and I wish I didn't, to be completely honest with you. That's all I'm going to say. I wish I didn't. Last year was cold as crap. We sat out there, and it did not work out for us Purdue Boilermakers fans. But we'll see how things play out with that. I don't think Tommy McClellan's comments worked too well for Purdue to bring the bucket home this year. So I'm going to say Indiana at 12. But I don't think Indiana will be as good as they were last year either. We'll see. We'll see how the Hoover kid does, but I think it's pretty tough to replace a Heisman and number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But of course, Hoosier fans think that they are number 1 again. I will get off my soapbox. I don't want to talk anymore about Indiana because that's all we got for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I'll be back next week to talk more Purdue football because we're just 2 weeks away. Today, we got into how Matt Painter is concerned about the boards, and rightfully so, why Daniel Jacobsen is a key piece to getting that worked out. Jack Benner, also a very important piece of this team and a future star, and we ranked all the games. Can't wait for football season to get kicked off, and hopefully Purdue is able to bring some wins home. So thank you guys once again. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. All that really helps out a ton as we want to continue to grow on this platform. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, whatever your preferred podcast platform is, make sure you guys leave a 5-star. That also really helps get the show recognized. That's all I got. So until next week, as always, boiler up, hammer down.